On behalf of India Science and the Department of Science and Technology, I, Nidhi Kumar, extend a very warm welcome to all of you on this program today. Tamsomar Jyotirgame. Let us begin today's auspicious event with the blessings of the Divine God. O light of exceptional glory, enlighten the darkness of my mind, for dark is the path, and thou holdest the light. Since this is a virtual program, I request our esteemed panelists to please light the lamp of knowledge.
आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शत्रुबुद्धिविनाशाय दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तुते दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तुते शुभं कुरु त्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शुभं कुरु त्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः.
So after that wonderful lamp lighting, we today remember 50 years of the Department of Science and Technology and what has been its journey, the challenges, the numerous achievements, and the success. And to talk about this and more, we have two very eminent panelists today, Professor Ashutosh Sharma, Secretary DST, and Mr. Amitabh Kant, presently the CEO of the very prestigious National Institution for Transforming India, Niti Aayog. Our topic today, friends, is on the other side of the pandemic. The COVID-19 pandemic has immensely boosted the case for universal healthcare. It has linked whole masses together, the sick, the non-sick, the worried, the partisan, in a movement. It is my privilege today to welcome our panelists. I would like to first welcome Professor Ashutosh Sharma, who will also welcome Mr. Kant. Mr. Ashutosh Sharma has been the founder of the Center for Nanoscience, the Center for Advanced Imaging, and chairman for Chemical Engineering and Center for Environmental Sciences, all at IIT Kanpur. He's a recipient of many scientific awards and honors, including the Infosys Prize in Engineering and Computer Science and the Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Prize, the Distinguished Alumnus Awards of IIT-K, Sunny Buffalo, and Honoris Causa from several universities in India and abroad. He has helped initiate several new programs related to infrastructure, human capacity, R&D in advanced manufacturing, waste processing, clean energy, cyber physical systems, industry, academia, cooperation, science communication, women scientists, and major international collaborations in the areas of priority for the nation. My privilege today to welcome you, sir, to share your vision and milestone achieved so far, and to extend a very esteemed welcome to our very honorable guest, Mr. Amitabh Kant. Ashutosh, sir.
It is indeed a pleasure and privilege to have Mr. Amitabh Kant, CEO Niti Aayog, with us today. This is a special privilege because his insights into science, technology, and innovation as an engine of growth for the country are unparalleled. Certainly, I've not seen it in very many administrators, and it is clearly reflected in the path that Niti Aayog has taken over the last so many years. To give you examples, the Atal Innovation Mission, which is making a huge difference to the country, to the movement of innovation and startups, going to the vision for the futuristic disruptive technologies like artificial intelligence, and having a policy and vision regarding that, as well as the new areas of electric mobility and so on. So he's been a huge champion of science, technology, and innovation. So it is indeed very fortunate to have him here as we look back on 50 years of Department of Science and Technology, as well as to think about where we are, and even more importantly, where we wish to be in the next few years to a long-range horizon of time as well. So a very hearty welcome to Mr. Khan. Thank you so very much for sharing your thoughts and insights and the way forward with all the viewers here today. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Greatly appreciate it.
So, thank you, sir, for your kind words. It is my privilege now to welcome today Mr. Amitabh Kant, CEO, Niti Aayog, National Institution for Transforming India. Niti is a Government of India institution for catalyzing the development process, nurturing an overall enabling environment by working in partnership with states, by being a knowledge hub and a think tank by facilitating implementation. Its aim is to foster involvement and participation of state governments in policy making and enhance cooperative federalism. Shri Amitabh Kant is a member of the IAS Kerala Kada 1980 batch. He is the author of Branding India, an incredible story, and has been a key driver of Make in India and Incredible India, God's Own Country initiatives, which positioned and branded India and Kerala state as a leading manufacturing tourism destination. These campaigns have won several international awards and embraced a host of activities, infrastructure development, product enhancement, positioning and branding, private-public partnership. He was also responsible for developing Kerala as a leading tourism destination. Mr. Amitabh Kant did his schooling from Modern School Delhi, Barakhamba. He did his graduation in economics honors from St. Stephen's Delhi University and his master's from JNU. He's also a Chevening Scholar. Mr. Kant has been the recipient of the Economic Time Policy Change Agent of the Year Award, the Bloomberg TV Personality of the Year Award, the NDTV Administrator of the Year Award, and the Distinguished Fellowship of the Institute of Directors. He's the recipient of the One Globe Award 2016 for Leadership in Transforming Governance for the 21st Century. He's a member of the steering board of the Shaping of Future Production Systems of the World Economic Forum. He's also the recipient of the Sir Edmund Hillary Fellowship Award by the Prime Minister of New Zealand. He's also the recipient of the Golden Peacock Award for Leadership in Economic Transformation 2017. We welcome you, sir. Thank you indeed for joining us today. I would like to now kickstart the question and answers round. So I take your permission, Ashutosh sir. Do I have your permission to start the Q&A? Thank you so much, sir.
Please go ahead.
We have a lot of panelists here. Do I have your permission to begin question number, sir? 1, Amitabh Kant, sir. This question is for you. So the question is, you have emphasized on the need of developing and adopting a circular economy, sir, which will help India post-COVID and battle the pandemic. How would this help in the environmental challenges? And now that Diwali is coming, this comes to us from Tushar Jain of IIT Roorkee, sir.
Okay, that's an excellent question, and let me compliment the questioner on this. So if we take a wider view of the economy, habitat and resources, then the necessity to move on the path of circular economy becomes very, very obvious. This is critical because we want to see our cities and towns livable and as dynamos of growth, then businesses, governance, technologies, and consciousness about circular economy models need to be involved and deployed quickly on ground. We've had many instances highlighting renewal of nature during the COVID lockdown. Industry leaders have been deliberating in serious terms about business sustainability and resilience with, much broadened contours. Energy sector globally is getting disrupted. Mobility will be the next. The question is, are public and private investors fully cognizant of all these realities, and will they fully factor them? Diwali this year would be an opportune time to dwell deeply on all these issues, and I anticipate a distinct move towards a circular economy, because we need to bring sustainability of recourse use at the forefront of development path. COVID is also a reminder to the vulnerabilities built into the present system, and living and the world is increasingly becoming conscious to the pattern of efficiency of resource usage. So all in all, I think we all need to move towards a circular economy, and the green recovery post-COVID would not just help us to tackle environmental challenges, but it would also help economic recovery through creation of jobs and opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I hope that answers your question, Tushar. The second question goes to you, Ashutosh, sir. According to some report, the COVID surge and graph in India is now on the downslide. Ashutosh Sharma, sir, this question is for you from Radhika of New Delhi. Would you like to
Yeah,
take this,
I've
sir?
understood. I've understood. Of course, if you look at the data, if you look at what's happening, if you look at the trends and so on, that certainly, and as a matter of fact, a whole lot of mathematical models as well predict that it's on the down trend, that we have fewer new cases of COVID-19. However, there is a very big condition and a very big if on continuation on the downward trend on these cases. Every kind of thinking, mathematical modeling, and the experience from elsewhere compellingly shows that this is conditional to us observing all the precautions to the dot. What are these precautions? These are related to masking, distancing, disinfecting, not crowding, having right kind of ventilation indoors, and taking all of these precautions very strongly. The new cases going down clearly depends on this. There are also unknowns which are related to change in temperature, winter around the corner. We have seen in other cases, both in India and abroad, that crowding, for example, in festivals and so on, has led to a second wave, which is even bigger than the first one. And I want to get this point across very clearly to everyone who is listening. Right now is the hardest time in the journey of pandemic, because the number of cases that we have in the country and in different states, some of them are still rising. And in any case, we are close to the peak, which means that the number of infected people are about the largest at this time. So the possibility of transmission is also the largest. So one must not think about simply, some cases going down now. That would continue to happen if we take all the precautions, like I said, to the dot. This is not the time to relax. Having come so far, we ought to really, really observe all of this very strongly without any relaxation for at least next 3 to 4 months.
Absolutely. And with festival time coming up, people are throwing caution to the wind. So it is recommended by the WHO, by the GOI, and our Honorable Prime Minister himself that we all need to take due precautions, especially since Diwali is coming up. Mr. Kant, the next question is for you, sir. It is coming from Priya of IIT Mumbai. She says, India is the youngest country with a vibrant startup ecosystem. It must convert the present COVID-19 into an opportunity. And she wants to know how we could find solutions for the development of digital technology. How do you look at digital apps that have even mushroomed during the period of the lockdown? Sir.
Mr. Kant,
I think you're on mute, sir. Mr. Kant, sir, could you unmute and please begin? Sir? Yeah.
So again, a very good question, and a consistent theme that we are observing in the COVID world is the prominence digitization is taken in the world stage. While the world was reeling under the economic stress and adverse impact of COVID-19, India saw massive tech investments inflow, crossing over 38 billion in just the last 6 or 7 months. And a significant portion of these investments have gone into consumer internet and software as a service based companies, which have witnessed a major growth brought about by an increasing demand for digital tools and automation amid the current crisis. And this has largely been owing to the massive strides and our investment in digital capabilities for the past several years. Thus, I think we are prepared for technology disruptions that COVID-19 may have induced. And as you are all aware, India today has a vibrant startup ecosystem. We have over 50,000 tech startups. In 2019 alone, over 1,300 startups were added. We are the third largest startup ecosystem in the world. More and more entrepreneurs in India are building technology products and targeting both India and abroad. There are over 30 unicorn startups. And, the India's IT and ITS industry is a global powerhouse. And while there are a plethora of new age product startups in the consumer internet and enterprise space, we now need to focus on creating platform companies. During the pandemic, we discovered that 8 out of the world's 10 richest companies actually grew and expanded because they have largely leveraged their technological capabilities and prowess to keep the world moving. During this year itself, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, and Google enhanced their market capitalization by over 1 trillion. And all these companies actually deliver their services through their platform as a service architecture. And therefore, the Prime Minister recently asked us to develop technological platforms in partnership with the private sector, which would enable India to leapfrog in the post-COVID era. As a result, we worked on 7 technological solutions which were developed that address themes ranging from financial inclusion to healthcare to telemedicine to a digital higher education university. And this, to my mind, presents a unique opportunity for India to position itself as the tech garage of the world. We also have a significant stake in the artificial intelligence revolution. Because the economic opportunity from AI is expected to be an addition of almost $1 trillion by 2035, boosting GDP by 1.3 percentage points. And the vast scale of data and massive digital footprint is India's biggest strength for AI development. And all our AI startups must really use AI to leapfrog. And our triple IITs and IITs should produce AI engineers and data scientists who can partner tech entrepreneurs to launch cutting-edge global tech companies. This is our future. I'm a firm believer that our ability to develop technological solutions for a country as vast and diverse as India will provide us with a unique opportunity to present a roadmap for addressing the needs of the next 7.5 billion people of the world. Therefore, we must become global champions in sunrise areas of technology industry, AI, genomics, data storage, cloud computing, Internet of Things, blockchain, quantum computing, and all these are young startups alone can do. Thank you.
Thank you so much for answering that so well. Indeed, India would be able to leapfrog into the Prime Minister's vision of 2022 of a more self-reliant India. I'd like you, Ashutosh sir, to come in and add to this, as I'm getting a lot of questions on my WhatsApp on AI. Sir, what has the Department of Science and Technology done to kind of do a lot of innovation during these COVID times, if you could tell the viewers? There are at least 15 questions from them, sir.
Okay, 15 questions, one answer. So Nidhi, let me start by saying you said we need to leapfrog. But I think the days of leapfrogging are totally behind us now. We need to pole vault. So I don't quite, like the little steps taken by frogs, but I think we really need to go for disruptive changes, architecture, processes, and structure that would actually meet our demands of the future. Now, your question is about AI. You see, AI, actually, there is an AI universe. It's not just AI. What I mean by that is that the future is all about convergence of different streams of technologies. What are these different streams, or this AI universe that we are talking about? This is about, it starts from measurements and data. So this is why data is so important. As Mr. Kant said, India is a diverse country. What that means is that the data coming from here actually can serve the needs of the whole universe. There is it's a macrocosm, which means everything that you find somewhere else, you're going to find here. So therefore, we have to treat our data with some respect that it deserves. All the other industrial revolutions were based on flow of material and energy. Now they are based on the flow of data, information, and knowledge. So whether it is Industry 4.0, whether it is Society 5.0, this is the stuff that we need to build on. And this is actually a strength together with the markets, together with the demographic dividend of India. And this is where the science, technology, and innovation has to build on these foundations, on these strengths. Now, you see, so what are the different elements of this AI universe? I said data. And when you talk about democratization of data and information and knowledge, it basically begins with acquiring data, right kind of data, its portability, its storage, its flow, its ownership, its analytics, its sharing, and so on, its localization, building upon it, the applications. The second aspect of this AI universe is communication. So it's not just communication between people, but communication between machines, which requires low latency, it requires stability, it requires speed, and all of that. This third aspect is what you call perception, which means sensors, right? So you get information not only through data, which is flowing through internet, you also get information about your surroundings through sensors. The fourth aspect of all of this is, of course, AI, machine learning, deep learning, all of that, which means decision making based on the information and data that you have. And the fifth aspect is autonomous action based on that, which is what we call actuators, robots, Industry 4.0, whatever you may call it. You see, technologies, even historically, they hunt in pairs. I'll give you a very good example so everybody can understand. The rise of personal computers and personal computing happened along with digital photography. In fact, the leadership of both of these leading companies at one point said that there is no market for digital photography. The other people said there is no market for for personal computing and personal computers. The reason is digital photography cannot happen without personal computers, and personal computers cannot survive unless you have applications which are personal, like digital photography. So remember that the rise of all these technologies, I would like to tell viewers that they have to really integrate all of this into new streams of knowledge. And what's happening about AI? So DST launched a mission last year, which is called Interdisciplinary Cyber Physical Systems. And this is basically the philosophy of cyber physical systems, that the digital cyber on one hand and the physical basically integrate to serve the needs in health, agriculture, transport, water, for example, precision agriculture, which is like 75% use of water, and energy, transport, education, and what have you. So this is taking root, and this is, of course, in line with the philosophy and vision that was put out by Niti Aayog in artificial intelligence. And artificial intelligence is really the heart that drives a whole lot of these applications. And so about 25 hubs have been set up and so on. But actually, I want to focus on something else. This is about how do we do science, technology, and innovation that would be effective. And there's a huge departure from the way we were doing it earlier. What that means is that we need actually a holistic, end-to-end, a seamless ecosystem which goes from R&D to technology development to human resources to incubators and startups and research parks, and basically interface with the industry line ministries in a strong way. So these particular mission, and indeed all the technology missions going in the future, like quantum technologies, which is another disruptive suite of technologies on the horizon, all of them would basically leverage this architecture, this structure, this process, which on one hand empowers all the participants, which is industry, government, startups, and academia and R&D, all of that together. So I think this is something that the future would make it possible for us to do our science and technology and innovation in a far more effective manner than it has been happening until now.
Thank you so much, sir, for all that information. And indeed, DST has been an architect of change. Amitabh, sir, one question coming up now on my screen repeatedly. So I'll take this before I take the one which I had decided earlier. I think this is really central to the worldview of India and to your worldview as well. The canvas that you've done on Atithi Devo Bhava, how do you see that affected, sir? Basically, tourism, and a lot of class 12 students I can see here asking the same question, that how do you look at the milieu of tourism post-COVID, sir?
So Nitin, the COVID-19 pandemic has impacted every sector across the world, but perhaps the travel, tourism and hospitality sector have been the most impacted of all. And the World Tourism Organization of the UN predicts a fall in international travel spending quite dramatically. And therefore, we have to have an inward focus for the short to medium term, and we need to prioritize that. Domestic tourism has the potential to grow in a massive way in the new normal. Travel, tourism, and hospitality have an immense multiplier impact on the economy. Their impact on direct and indirect job creation is huge. And tourism will be the key sector for growth of high quality jobs in India. And my view is that will be a very, very key driver of growth and of both earnings. And therefore, with international travel restrictions in place, the demand for domestic tourism will escalate very, very significantly. And we have all the opportunities in the world to meet that demand with unique and untapped offering. We have the most amazing diversity, from 38 UNESCO World Heritage Sites to the Himalayas to pristine beaches and plenty of other natural assets. The key opportunity now upon the normal resumption of these sectors is the potential of emerging and robust demand that will be spurred by domestic travel and consumption. And there are innumerable opportunities for domestic travelers to find options in travel. And therefore, an inward-looking, approach, an incredible India 2.0, which is domestically oriented, is my vision and prediction for the future. One where India will take hospitality sector to unprecedented heights.
Thank you so much, sir. I hope that answers your questions. And we'll take one more on hospitality. I can see that coming. But before that, Ashutosh, sir, the next question comes for you. Convergence and integration of technologies help democratization of knowledge. So the future is all about being interconnected. So how do we look at it at science and technology point of view? This is from Vishal of IIT Kharagpur.
Yeah, so you see, democratization of knowledge is indeed the compelling theme going in the future, for all future. See, science, technology, innovation have always been considered to be an elite pursuit. While the pursuit may be elite, the fruits of that pursuit ought to reach every sector, every section of the society to fully empower them. Now, to give you an example about democratization of knowledge, you see, there's a whole lot of this scientific literature, there's a whole lot of knowledge resources that are confined to our universities, IITs, R&D labs, and so on. Now, it would be a great help if everybody is able to access them from, let's say, our school students, even farmers, women, everybody, people living in small towns who are outside of these formal systems of knowledge. Now, a very great, so there are two aspects here. One is how do we take all this information which is relevant to everybody? Second aspect is how do we do it in a language that they understand? Very few people actually understand, for example, all this transaction that happens in English, right? So even here, machine learning and machine translation, for example, are very strong tools going forward, because the rate at which today information is being created in many different languages, you cannot translate it manually at all. Not at all. I mean, it's impossible. So only way forward going, and in fact, we started a program. If you look at Wikipedia pages, now everybody goes to Wikipedia, Google Guru to ask questions, to solve your problems. But you look at number of pages in English, it is hundreds of times more, thousands of times more than the dominant language Hindi in India. So how are we going to actually tackle that problem? The only way forward is through convergence of technologies by leveraging technology. And so, like I said, machine translation with a light touch, manual light touch, later on, honing our tools of machine translation so it gets better and better. And at the same time, for example, having access to scientific literature. Now, clearly, it has become so pricey. It is not possible for people to, get these journals sitting at home or in the schools and so on. So, therefore, a new policy is coming in. How do we say, actually, can there be, for example, one country, one subscription policy? Can there be open platforms that allow everybody to access? So we talk about the fact that while India has deep strengths in IT, our weakness has been we have not created a world-class platform, right, which is actually global with the global quality, which is what people want to jump onto and take advantage of it. I think there are huge opportunities, and I'm just pointing out one, which is to have a knowledge repository with translation facilities, and which can be accessed by everybody with all the statistical tools that analyze knowledge, so that globally people have some reason to be on this platform, right? And so anyway, like I said, that the future is hugely interdisciplinary and not even multidisciplinary. And there are major changes that are happening in doing of science and technology globally. A major change, in fact, also has to happen in our education, especially higher education, which is siloed. What we mean by that is that our courses are in chemistry, physics, biology, but our problems are not problems of chemistry, physics, biology. They are problems of synthesis. They are not problems of analysis. And actually, there's a total lack of synthesis of different streams of knowledge in our education as well as in our practice. So siloed, totally siloed. I can't tell you how much. Right. And so we need to work with all kind of engineers, all kind of technologists, all kind of scientists, all kind of economists, all kind of social scientists and humanities people. So unless that holistic thinking starts from education, it's really going to be difficult to be very ambitious. And the new national education policy addresses some of these aspects. And the new upcoming policy in science, technology, innovation 2020 will focus from the side of research. So there are really two twins, education and research, and you can't really separate them. We have made this mistake of separating them. Look at PhD. Now PhD is education and research both. Education is through research, right? So therefore, if we are not actually doing a very big modification, changes, maybe even disruptive in all of this, going from grassroots up, that is the challenge. And I think we have to meet that challenge very squarely and without delay. Many positive things are happening in that direction. So I think it looks positive. Thank you.
Absolutely, sir. I totally validate what you said, because universities are indeed at some point or the other, Mr. Khan sir, they're divorced from research, and what we are teaching our children is where we need to introspect, whether it's the dialect, whether it is the language, and how much he's learning, rote learning, 5,000-year-old history. How does he inculcate the spirit of scientific inquiry, which is a mandate of our fundamental rights, Article 51H. Mr. Khan, the next question is for you. This is, tell us about Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Atmanirbhar Bharat initiative, protectionism, isolation, anti-globalization. How can this India campaign help to create world-class products, capture the Indian market, and use the strength of the domestic market to penetrate the global market? This has been asked by Vidhi Sharma of IIT Delhi, sir.
So let me first tell Vidhi that, let me clarify to Vidhi that Atmanirbhar Bharat is not inward looking or protectionist. On the contrary, it will be our path to greater integration into the global value chains. Prime Minister's vision is that our exposure to superior technologies and investment will make us competitive at the global stage, and we should actually be very, very progressive and look at global markets. Atmanirbhar Bharat is about laying the foundations for India to compete in global markets. So inherently, it is forward-looking. The relief and stimulus measures announced was also part of the Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan. And our objective is that, if you look at many things which the package had envisaged, one of which was this production-linked incentive schemes in certain sectors. So we've actually went for production-linked incentive schemes in electronics and mobile manufacturing, and we've been able to attract some of the biggest investors in the world. We attracted investments from all the Apple manufacturers, Foxconn, Wistron, Pegatron, all eyeing India as the next big base, including Samsung. And the boosting of our industrial capabilities and the resulting shift in the manufacturing basis of companies to India through this program would not just cater to the strong domestic consumer base, but also to the global demand. And this would trigger a cycle of further improvements in industrial capabilities as the demand keeps on growing. So Atmanirbhar Bharat is extremely progressive. It looks at the sunrise areas of industries. It looks at making us a very, very integral part of the scheme. And our objective really is that we should focus on new areas. The future lies in sunrise areas of growth, such as mobile, pharma, APIs, battery storage, 2- and 3-wheelers, electric vehicles, artificial intelligence, genomics, data storage. We have, even prior to the crisis, already provided a boost by announcing production-linked incentives for mobile and API sectors, as I said, and we have laid down a robust set of measures which will chart India's really economic growth and dynamism and moving forward. And therefore, my view is that this big drive into global champion sectors and moving from low value, high volume exports to high value, high technology exports would really lead us in the right direction. We will use this crisis as an opportunity to usher path-breaking reforms. Thank you.
थैंक यू सो मच सर. बिल्कुल आपने सही कहा, ऐसे ही बनेगा. माननीय प्रधानमंत्री ने जिस तरह कल्पना की है भारत के लिए एक सशक्त समृद्ध भारत. I would like to ask you, sir, Ashutosh sir, to add to this on what science and technology has actually done on Atmanirbhar Bharat. There is a question coming from Abhay of IIT Bangalore. What has been the learning that we've done? I can say that masks is one. Would you like to please elaborate, sir?
Yeah. Atmanirbhar Bharat is not about mask. Of course, we have to do masking. There's no doubt about it. You see, there are two fundamental issues that we must understand about Atmanirbhar Bharat. Atmanirbharta, in fact. The first issue is related to science, technology, and innovation. Now, so I'll give you an example. Now, in COVID-19 time, we have seen that the stuff we didn't have, 5 months ago, we had no ventilators, we had no diagnostic kits, we had no PPEs, we had no N95 mask. We were not really greatly empowered in terms of drug discovery or in terms of vaccine. Of course, there was vaccine manufacturing, but discovery about vaccine, and so a whole lot of this, right? Now the point is, whole lot of this has happened in the last 4 months with the speed and at a scale at which we can have the best of global models and technologies developed here, which can be exported at half the price at which we were importing them. So now, how did that happen? This is a part related to science, technology, and innovation. So when we look at it, it happened because there was a clear and present objective. Point number 2, that this objective was a shared objective which was owned by the entire chain of R&D to innovation, which means that basically you have R&D labs and you have IITs and even a whole lot of mentors and startups and industry working together for this common shared purpose. Now, what it basically proved to us is that you see, our weaknesses are not in creation of scientific knowledge. Our weaknesses are its connect with the consumers of that knowledge. So basically, what it means is that if you had IIT and industry working together from the beginning, it gives a clear direction, clear sense of purpose to the market, all the way to the market, and that is what makes it possible. So in fact, we know that in, let us say, in creation of scientific knowledge, we are already Atmanirbhar. How do I know that? Because we are number three in the world in terms of number of scientific publications, including the cutting edge areas like nanotechnology, material science, even AI is getting there very fast. Now, so the point is, this is just an indicator of the strength of knowledge creation. This is not the end of the story. The end of the story is that this knowledge must get somewhere where it would be consumed and transformed into new opportunities, which is basically industry, which is basically startups, which is basically government. When government needs the knowledge and it is a buyer of that knowledge and so on, it has to go to NGO, it has to go to society at large. So this is the lesson that we have learned from COVID-19, that you need a seamless end-to-end ecosystem which is creating appropriate, relevant knowledge with direction, and at the same time has the muscle to consume it. The second aspect of Atmanirbhar Bharat is deeply cultural. That has nothing to do with science technology. In fact, science technology that we can do is based on that cultural aspect. And there are three pillars of that cultural aspect. And I know that because I've interacted with our top students, top brains of the country for 30 years now. Atmanirbharta cannot come unless you have Atmavishwas, which is a self confidence that we can do it, we will do it. Now, this is not something which is conveyed in our education, by the way, and I don't have time to get into it. The second point, deep cultural pillar, is Atma Samman. You see, if I have no Atma Samman, I can't give it to anybody else. And this is very critical. You can't be negative about these things. So there has to be a very deep component of positivity in the society at large. The third aspect is Atma Chintan, which is not same as Atma Chinta. And Atma Chintan means true analysis of our weaknesses without being negative about them and saying, look, what is the way forward in an honest way, in a committed way. And these, I think, three Atma pillars of Atmanirbharta that we have often been ignoring as a society as a whole. I mean, it amazes me no end that sometimes, you know, scientists, our students, they respect even the color of the skin, right? So they say, hey, somebody is wiser because he has a different skin of the color, or if he speaks English, or if he comes from a big town, or you know, all of these stereotypes. We have to get away from there. I mean, we want to democratize, you know, our science and our knowledge. This Atmavishwas, this Atma Saman, and this Atma Chintan are essential pillars which go way beyond science and technology. And we have to really inculcate this in every possible form through every mechanism, whether it is a school education, whether it is something, right, anything. All of that has to basically bear upon this central question. Uh, and this requires participation of society at large. Thank you.
बिल्कुल जैसे आपने कहा समाज को भी पार्टिसिपेट करना पड़ेगा, इंट्रोस्पेक्ट करना पड़ेगा, तभी एक आत्मनिर्भर, एक सशक्त और समृद्ध भारत बनेगा. अमिताभ सर, the next question comes to you, and this is about India's watershed moment. Agricultural reforms, sir. Structural reforms in agriculture and exports to revive growth. This is from Garvit of NIIT Jammu. So he wants to know what are your views and what are the Niti Aayog's guidelines for this, and how do you look at helping out the farmers through agricultural reforms and reviving growth, sir?
So, Garvit, let me tell you that the reforms in agriculture were much needed and were long demanded. The mandi system was no longer acting in the best interests of farmers. Farmers were restricted to selling their produce at designated mandis, and each mandi functioned as an independent entity. And this resulted in fragmented agriculture markets. It hampered inter and interstate trade, and a web of middlemen emerged between the wholesaler and the retail markets. And they actually drove a wedge between the prices received by the farmers and those paid by the consumers. So there were a lot of middlemen making money, not the actual farmers. Numerous government committees over the years made the same recommendations that the mandi system needed competition, farmers needed multiple avenues to sell their produce, and contract farming needed an enabling environment, and the Essential Commodities Act needed to be amended. And actually, this is exactly what the farm reforms undertaken by the present government addresses. Farmers will have freedom to sell their produce anywhere in the world and to anyone they want, not to the middleman. Contract farming will provide for the necessary links to the food processing sector. Private investment in storage will increase, and these reforms will result in the creation of a barrier-free national market for agriculture backed by an efficient cold chain. And this will allow for higher prices to be received by farmers without affecting consumer prices. So, whereas these reforms will have a huge impact on reviving growth and agriculture exports through unshackling the long-regulated agriculture sector. And this, to my mind, is truly India's watershed moment.
Absolutely, sir. I must read a comment from Dr. Akhilesh Gupta, who writes in that I guess the biggest blessing in disguise during COVID period was the convergence amongst government, academia, and industry who worked together and delivered. Absolutely true, Sahi, bilkul. The next question for you, Ashutosh sir, and then I'll take two questions from Mr. Kant. Due to paucity of time, we'll request you, Mr. Kant sir, to join us once again for the keynote address. We know you are busy today, sir. So the next question is for you, Ashutosh sir. The initiative is targeted to strengthen social infrastructure through technology. What does this mean? This is from Madhu of IIM Ahmedabad. Madhu Khare, sir.
You see, I'm not exactly clear about what is meant by social infrastructure by the person who is asking the question, but let me interpret it my way. So one of the aspects, even though we don't recognize human resources as a social infrastructure, but since we are talking about Atmanirbharta without participation of 50% of society in science and technology is a pipe dream. So what I'm basically saying is, look, diversity, inclusion, and equity are other three pillars of Atmanirbharta. So this is about empowering women or creating a level playing field for them for their strong participation in science, technology, and innovation. Today, if you look at the top colleges of the country, like IITs in technology, it's about 10%, 12% at the most. When I was an undergraduate in an IIT 40 years ago, it was 6%. So in 40 years, we have done, Northern Chile at high course. So this is where leapfrogging and pole vaulting actually comes in. So how do we, empower in creating both infrastructure, human resources, other infrastructure I would come to in a second, right, which is more tangible, what we call, the bricks and mortar infrastructure, which is of social relevance. All right. So I think that we really, really have to address, and DST has been working on several schemes to make sure that our participation of women scientists in creation of science, technology, and innovation becomes at par with, men, for example. And at the same time, we also have to create leadership at an early age, which means our youth have to be empowered. So women and youth are basically, typically in Oriental societies, it's a weakness. But if we understand that weakness, I'm sure that one can address it in an effective way. Second aspect is about infrastructure, which is socially relevant, but coming from the side of science, technology, and innovation. So it takes many different forms. As an example, now we're creating new centers called Sathis, each at a cost of an investment of 125 crores, three such centers have been set up this year. Every year, three new centers. What would they do? Basically, you see the access of our society, MSME, startups, and so on, to high-end infrastructure in science and technology is very limited. There is no ease of access. Even though government creates tens of thousands, crores worth of infrastructure in science and technology every year, it largely remains limited to R&D labs, universities, IITs, and so on. Right now, how do we make that access possible to people who would benefit it hugely from this, and would therefore also translate that infrastructure into new economic opportunities? And these Sati centers are basically that. They provide not only the use of infrastructure to MSMEs, to startups, to small companies, and so on, but also help them with knowledge resources. Another point going in that direction is a new policy which is now in the last legs, which is called scientific social responsibility, which is basically to create direct interfaces between science and society. Now, how does science go to society? Usually through industry or NGOs or something like that. But there have to be also more direct interfaces between the infrastructure that we have in science, human resources that we have in science, and all the knowledge that we have in science. Can all of these three things be connected to society more directly? And this is the intent and objective of scientific social responsibility. I don't have more time actually to talk about it. Essentially, by reaching out to different sections of society and empowering them with the help of our infrastructure, with the help of our knowledge, and with the help of our human resources. And I think this would be indeed transformative in terms of what science can actually do for society, all sections of society, from students to farmers.
So thank you so much for that absolutely pragmatic approach. Amitabh sir, the next question, and in fact, I'll be taking this as the last question today. Firstly, they have called you the unstoppable Indian, sir. So they're saying, what is your vision for post-pandemic in India? I'm clubbing in three, four questions, sir. There is Rachna Kalra who's asking, how would you look at local small businesses like the Prime Minister mentioned, Kirana Ki Dukan, and government policies supporting the development of efficient green small businesses? And how do we scale up all of this, scale up our economy post the pandemic times? How does Niti Aayog look at this? How do you look at India 2022, sir?
So these are very important questions. I'm a great optimist. I'm a great believer in the India story, and these are very important questions. And let me tell you that I'm a great believer in the India story. I'm extremely optimistic about India's future. I'm absolutely clear that these reforms which have been done during the pandemic period will lead and drive India towards a sustained growth over a long period of time. We should not look for overnight results, but look at making India grow at high rates of 9 to 10% per annum, year after year for next 3 decades or more. So we've carried out very extensive reforms. The government has brought in radical reforms through DST, IBC, labor laws now, and agriculture, mining, definition of MSME. These are path-breaking reforms. Many of them were held up for the last 50 years. Coal was nationalized when I was in school. It has only now been denationalized. And therefore, they will take India to a long growth path. But it's important that in all this, one thing which becomes very clear during the COVID pandemic, that it's technology which will be a very key driver of growth. And, my belief is that we have technology will be a very key driver, and therefore the economic opportunity from using technology to grow will be enormous. We already have a very strong technological backbone, and we have over 650 million of broadband and mobile internet users. We have a robust and vibrant startup ecosystem, and we have the lowest data cost. And therefore, India provides a perfect playground for enterprises and institutions globally to develop scalable solutions. And these can easily be implemented in other countries as well. So your questions about Kirana stores and MSMEs are very important. I'm a believer that Indian stories about Kirana stores and about MSMEs, but they will grow and expand if they also use technology to leapfrog. They cannot remain as they are. Technology will be the biggest driver of change. And therefore, to each one of these Kirana stores must themselves become drivers of e-commerce. Each one of the MSMEs must use data. There must be drivers of technology. They must use artificial intelligence. And all of them, blockchain solutions, and all of them, once they become important users of technology, they will all see quantum jump in India. It's important that they all use science, they all have a scientific mindset, they should use technology, and much like what Secretary Science and Technology, Mr. Ashutosh, has said, that if we have to go on a sustained growth and if we have to become a $5 trillion economy, science and technology will be a very, very key driver of India's growth. And therefore, I'm particularly delighted to take part in this interaction because 50 years of the Department of Science and Technology, it has done path-breaking work. It has taken India to high levels and it will drive the future of India. And therefore, I'm particularly proud that to participate in today's interaction on the occasion of the 50 years of science and technology, and it is in very safe and progressive hands of Dr. Ashutosh Sharma.
थैंक यू सो मच सर एंड बिल्कुल हम सभी से यही कहेंगे कि विज्ञान में सभी क्वेश्चंस के राज छुपे हुए हैं एंड लेट अस ऑल रीइन्वेंट साइंस, लेट अस रीइमेजिन India and let us reimagine our thinking to become more innovative. We must spend times rethinking about the kind of economy and the social system that we want in the future. And with this, I would like to thank Professor Ashutosh Sharma and Shri Amitabh Kant for sharing their vision on the other side of pandemic. We request you, sir, Mr. Kant, sir, on popular demand to join us more often. And lots of questions are still pouring in, and I'd like to really thank the audience for watching today, and we will be surely with you another time with Professor Ashutosh Sharma and Shri Amitabh Kant. As we firmly sign off today and bring this ceremony to an end, I request all of you to please stand, rise for the national anthem. Jai Hind.
जन गण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य